Wait till we get a few people in here. If anyone's in here, mic check. All right, so I'm just going to get started. As people come in, you can ask me questions. This video will be on replay after the fact. So, hey, Athrun, how you doing? So we are going to be talking about a few subjects today. The first one I wanted to talk about, which I will get into after this introduction so I can give some people more time to get into the chat room, is Netherrealm Studios prioritizing Mortal Kombat 12 over Injustice 3, which is what we thought was going to be happening, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So I hope we have a chance to discuss that. Soul Calibur 7 and possible releases, and then I also kind of wanted to talk about like the craziness with like the Soldier Boy stuff, because I thought he would go away, but he hasn't yet. So we'll see where that takes us. The first thing that I wanted to obviously discuss, well, first I want to say hey to chat and everybody that's in the chat, and I would also like to say hi to Athrun. My mod is in the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to hit him up or hit me up in the comment section of the chat. Before we get started, I want to make a few things clear. I will answer your questions. Just please at me if the chat is going too fast, and also all that good stuff like the stream and stuff, all the normal stuff. If you have any questions that doesn't have to do with what we're talking about, that's fine. Just go ahead and ask anything you want, and we're gonna have a pretty free and open, chill chat. So with that being said, let's begin. So me and a bunch of other people were touting that NetherRealm Studios was looking at the rights or the licensing acquisition of Marvel Studios from Disney to make a game, and we were all surmising that it was probably going to be DC versus Marvel game, since they have the DC distribution licenses for video games already, and our next game is touted to be Injustice 3, right? Because it usually goes like Mortal Kombat, then Injustice, Mortal Kombat, then Injustice. That seems to not be the case this time, because new information has come to light. Apparently, WB or AT&T in general, which is the parent company of WB, which owns the Mortal Kombat franchise, not NetherRealm. They just developed for it because they sold the rights to them a while ago. AT&T is looking to sell their entire gaming division. There's a couple companies that are up, so I'm going to go to this page to reference it real quick. We're looking at this article. Apparently, the interests that have been accrued so far is EA, God forbid, Take-Two, Microsoft, and Activision Blizzard. Out of all of these, if any of them would go, I would like to see Microsoft, because then it would be included in Game Pass for free day one. But its entire game division is up for sale in 2020. NetherRealm's parent company, WB, is looking uncertain this past year because of some of the releases and some of the profits. And it makes more sense to see a Mortal Kombat 12 because they know it's guaranteed money. Injustice usually does about half the sales of the Mortal Kombat games. This article goes on to say, a new development took place earlier this year when AT&T announced it had agreed to deal to offload WB Games' parent company, Warner Media, which will merge with Discovery to form a new standalone company built as one of the largest global streaming players. Excuse me, which would be nice because maybe I'll do that instead of Twitch. The transaction, which is anticipated to close in mid-2022, will see AT&T receive $4.3 billion and its shareholders receive stock representing 71% of the new company. While WB Games wasn't mentioned in May's announcement, a spokesperson told Axios that the deal will see it broken up in some form. Some of the gaming arm will stay with AT&T, and some will go to a new company, that they said. So that's pretty interesting so far. I don't know exactly like what other companies I would want to acquire some of WB's gaming division. Like I said, like Microsoft would be a good choice because it would still come out on PlayStation, but it would also be included with Game Pass, which means that you can, if you have an Xbox and you have Game Pass, you can get it for free day one. So that's nice to save $70. Though I usually play that on PlayStation, but it would be interesting to be able to have it on both, at least, that I can play with subscribers and stuff like that when we do our members play days. I actually would really like that. But the sales apparently for Injustice 2 were about half that of that. I'm actually going to look up the details right away because I don't want to just talk out of my ass. So basically, like their NetherRealm's plan was to have Injustice 2 as the next game. Okay, so Injustice 2 sold 500,000 digital copies on PS4 and Xbox One. That's digital. I'm looking for exact sales data. Give me 1 second. So that's actually not that much. Let's do MK11. I don't even know why we need to do this because obviously we know that Mortal Kombat would sell more. Mortal Kombat sold more than 8 million copies. So what that basically tells me is that, like, if they're being acquired by a new company, they're going to come with their best stuff, right? So in order to get the best deal, they have to show a return on investment or ROI. So what that would inquire is like what games came out in the past time period that the acquisition is taking place and how much profit did you actually return on those investments. So let's say Mortal Kombat costs like $90 million to make, but it sells 8 million copies at like $70 or $60 a pop, right? That's obviously giving them a large profit margin to work with, covering their losses and making the company a huge profit. But when you have a game like Injustice 2, which is developed for roughly around the same amount, but sells way less copies, you're either working at a loss just for the IP, or you're actually working with less profit to be able to show to shareholders. So if Mortal Kombat is part of WB and WB wants to sell to a highest bidder, they're going to be looking at sales numbers so they can get a return on investment. Because a lot of these companies that are in marketing and stuff, and these parent companies, they don't care about like the games themselves, let's be honest. All they care about is a return on their investment so they can line their pockets. So what WB would need to offer to get the best deal for them so that they can walk away like with their investment originally covered from when they purchased the title of all the games that they have in their games division. What they would need to show is that like their game is worth this much. So if they sell for this higher amount of profit margin or value, that it'll be worth it for both sides. I think it's very interesting and very telling that they would go with Mortal Kombat 12 first. The problem is with me is that like I think something like Mortal Kombat 12, which is a complete reboot of the franchise, should have a little bit more time to bake in the oven, but it doesn't really matter. They don't care like that it would happen. They just want to pump out a product because they know that people will buy it. A lot of games are like that. Like you can look at like Madden, for example. Madden 22 just came out and it's already selling gangbusters, but Madden uses the same assets that it's been using since the 2020 game, which came out in 2019. So a lot of that stuff being said, it's like they don't really care too much about like reception or Metacritic scores or ratings or even audience scores. They care more about just making a return on their investment. So it is looking like these rumors are going to be true according to all these articles and what the Times are reporting, that Mortal Kombat 12 is going to be the next game. I was excited for like a Mortal Kombat versus DC. I really was. I mean, a Marvel versus DC rather. Even in Injustice 3, just where it would take it, because I think this game would be separate from like how the comics have portrayed the series to go so far. And I think they would do something very different with it. But I mean, Mortal Kombat 12 would be nice, but I mean, I'm still playing Mortal Kombat 11, but a lot of people have problems with like the mechanics and stuff like that. Like but I mean, like normies don't care about that stuff, but like hardcore players will be like a little upset with that. I don't care too much because I like seeing cool characters doing cool stuff. It's a fun pastime, but I know a lot of people in the competitive scene really want the game to be polished, and they deserve to have their game polished as well, especially when Mortal Kombat headlines a lot of the tournaments because its netcode is so good. But does anyone have any questions thus far in the comment section before I go into the next section? If they got Marvel, I think Marvel versus DC would actually sell a lot more than Injustice. But again, they need to provide proof that their company's worth that much. So when they actually sell it, they can get a better bid. You see many watching sound off in chat. Oh, yeah. Any other mods here too? Yeah, guys, just please like the stream if you're here. Feel free to say something in the chat if you have anything to add to this conversation or want me to look up any more specific information. The article that I was looking at in particular was oh, if you want to know what sprung this, by the way, like I saw rumors of this already starting to happen. I also saw Maximilian Dude cover it. I also don't know if I'm like exactly like ready for Mortal Kombat 12. Okay, so the gamer right here is reporting on it. That's what I was talking about. Also, all right, so there's a podcast, and it was stated by who's making this quote. Let's see. I want to make sure that we get this right. I believe this is Ed Boon. No. This is one of the developers. Anyway, it says, as far as I'm aware, we still haven't heard any news from Netherrealm about exactly what they're working on next. That's a big question. People think it's Marvel vs. DC, which is what I was saying. That would be wild, but it's probably not that. I think that it's going to be that it was going to be Injustice 3 or whatever. That was an educated guess. And then it goes on to say pretty much what I already said. The last man, this is so annoying. Let me see. Let me read some of the comments. Reckless Navigator, hey, how you doing? Says, it is way too soon for Mortal Kombat. I felt like 11 came out last week. I agree, but it would be 5 years because the game Mortal Kombat's already been out for 3 years. It did have like an extra year with the MK11 boost for content. But again, this is not something that I want. I just want to reiterate that. I'm just saying that AT&T, which is the parent company of WB Games Division, which owns Mortal Kombat. Netherrealm Studios doesn't own Mortal Kombat anymore. It's sold to WB. They literally just do the development for it. Their games division is up for sale. And there's a bunch of companies, including Microsoft, that are looking at purchasing the games division. And with those rights would go Mortal Kombat. So Khan Gemini says, not sure if Disney would give WB the okay to use Marvel characters to make DC versus Marvel. Still, that would be amazing to see. Well, they were in talks before this happened, but all of a sudden, AT&T, they reported a loss apparently with WB Games Division, so they're looking to sell off the entire gaming division, which would mean the rights to Mortal Kombat would also go with that. So what they have to do now, their next best thing to do is if they want to make the highest profit and keep all of the staff that they have currently on, what they need to do is focus on making the highest selling product that they can actually make so that they can show profit within the first quarter, which would be the first 3 months of the game's release. That way they can take this data to the shareholders and the financiers of the people that are actually trying to purchase the company and give them a better deal, which would give them more money and more development time and things of that nature for their next game. So Mortal Kombat does make sense because Mortal Kombat sold like 8 million copies, Mortal Kombat 11, but Injustice 2, I think did like 2 million in total, like including like digital sales and stuff like that. So it's not even half. I could be exactly wrong on that number, but I was trying to look for it and they didn't show exactly how much sales they had. It was just like digital within the first like couple months, the first quarter. But so I'll have to check up and make an actual video up on this filing later on. So they need to, in order to pass this acquisition, because what happened? What are the two options that would happen? Okay, so say that you are Take-Two Interactive, which is one of the people that are actually interested in purchasing the WB Games division. I believe it's EA, Take-Two, Microsoft, and one other company. I said it earlier, so you can go back on the video later. Those companies, they want to see a big ROI or return on investment. So they need to see how much their game made last time and how much they would predict it for this time. They're not going to say, oh, well, Mortal Kombat 9 sold more than Mortal Kombat 10 and 11. Therefore, we trust that you are going to make a better game like this. You can keep your whole staff, and we're going to give you all of this bountiful budget. That's not how it works. So they're going to look at their last game, which came out within the last fiscal quarter or fiscal year, going back at least that far. And they're going to say, okay, Mortal Kombat 12 just came out. It sold, let's say, 1 million copies in the first quarter. We guarantee, based on Mortal Kombat 11 sales, that it's going to exceed at least 7 million, possibly up to 10 million. And this is how much money we're going to be making. This is how much profit we actually made after all the development costs were paid off and the distribution costs were paid off and all the licensing fees were paid off. And this is how much we would need to make the next game. Then they would look at that information and see how much money and liquid capital they have to pour into the next game of development cycles. And then they would choose, okay, if we want this studio that we're taking with WB as a whole, their gaming division, we would get this much money back for paying for WB. So is it worth it just to acquire this one license to purchase WB Games Division? And that's what they're looking for. So all the companies that are within WB Games Division right now that are in transit, they're going to put forth their best-selling games so that they can actually show the highest return on investment, so that the bigger company can actually acquire them for the best price for them. That way, the next games that they make have better development time and they can keep their same staff. Because what will happen if they don't do that, like let's say they do Injustice 3 and it only sells like 1 million copies or 2 million copies. They're going to say, okay, we're ignoring Mortal Kombat because that was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago at this time. We're only looking at this last fiscal year, this financial year. So you've only made this much from your studio. So therefore, you only deserve to get this much. It's a similar situation that happened when Soul Calibur 6 was reapplying through Bandai Namco to relaunch the series. Like they were looking at the sales from Soul Calibur 5 in their mobile game. Reckless Navigator says, so would you say that it correlates to Soul Calibur 7 also, especially because the teams keep dropping and joining to make it? Yes, I've talked about this a lot, and that's a good question to ask. Thank you for asking it. Soul Calibur 7 is definitely going to be made because they passed the budget that was required to them by Bandai Namco. They were supposed to surpass at least 1 million in sales, and they've done 2 million physical, and that's not even including digital. So they've actually exceeded what they were supposed to do threefold, and they are going to make a 7. Now, what's up to par is how much budget are they going to get for 7? Well, they can't just apply for a budget, right? That's not what you do. Like as an artist for a book, right? If I want to go to whatever parent company I'm working for at the time, call it Marvel, DC, whatever, Image is a little bit differently, but let's say the big two, and you want to say like, all right, this is the project that I'm proposing. This is my last project. This is who I had as my team, and this is how much money we made. This is how many units we sold. Can I have this budget? If it exceeds what happened last time, then they're not going to give it to you. If you can prove that your ROI or return on investment is going to give them back more money so that they can make their bonuses for the corporate shareholders that fiscal year, then they're going to go ahead and do that because all they care about is money, right? The developers care about the games, but all the parent companies care about is money. So if Soul Calibur 7 is coming out, they're going to look at Soul Calibur 6 and say, all right, well, we gave you the goal of selling 1 million units and you sold 3. So you exceeded our profit margin based on the budget we gave you last time. Therefore, we're comfortable with giving you 3 times the budget because we know you're at least going to make that in the next game. So because you got to remember too that marketing is like half of like how much a budget is. So if they give you like a $3 million budget, then that means you need to spend at least $3 million on marketing. It's like that's 101. So let's say they look at Soul Calibur and they say, we're going to give you 3 times the budget that we gave you last time. Plus we're going to help with promotion and stuff like that. That edges up on the budget a little bit. Then they automatically have all this liquid capital to make the next game. Does that make sense to you? So Soul Calibur 6 was made on a very baseline budget. It was a very expendiary budget, which was relying heavily on the sales up to the point in which they got more budget. So like season 1 and season 2 were dependent on each other. Like season 2's budget was dependent on season 1 sales, and season 1 sales were dependent on the actual sales for the actual game, the profits. They don't include the costs because that's just stuff that they have to always worry about. All right, cool. I'm glad I can clear that up. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. So I mean, I am a little worried because all things look like Mortal Kombat's come out like what, once every 5 years, right? We've had like 3 in the past decade. Hakan Gemini says, is there a deadline that companies want to hit for target sales? Like this game need to be 2 million by 1 year, or it depends. So they go by fiscal years. Fiscal years are in quarters, and the quarters are broken up into 4-month sectors. So like that's why like the beginning of our year starts in January, right? But the fiscal year starts, I believe, in like November or October and goes through January. That's the first part of the fiscal year, which means how much profit did they make within this past quarter? I'm sure you've heard quarter a lot thrown around and fiscal years thrown around a lot, but what they want to see is how much profit they made within the last fiscal marketing year. They don't care if it's like a number of copies. That was their set thing. They know how much the game costs, right? So if the game is like $65 US and like $75 Australia, something like that, they know that if they moved at least 1 million copies and it's at $70, then you have what, like $70 million. And if they gave them like, let's say $40 million to make the game, which I doubt, I think the it's closer to like the 20s or 30s. If they gave them that much, then they would want to see at least threefold back. They don't want to see like, okay, we gave you $10 million, but you made $11 million. Good job. That's considered a failure. I'm sure you see this with Hollywood movies all the time because they follow a same fiscal quarter financial thing. Yeah, like quarter to spring or fall, exactly. But they would look at the whole fiscal year for an acquisition for a company like this. They're not just going to look at a quarter. But usually the first quarter is what they look at because that's where they make the biggest money. And then they compare and contrast that to the last fiscal quarter. So it would be like winter versus spring, more like it. Because spring, usually the sales slow down because not many games come out in the summertime. And everyone comes out like in the fall, right? Because you want to hit that Christmas marketing schedule. You want to hit that Black Friday date. So a lot of the games come out then. That's why we call it Broketober, right? Because October comes out with the most releases, and that's why it's Broketober. It's okay, Mike. It's good to see you here. So whatever person is going to be acquiring WB Studios is going to be literally looking at those things. They're going to say, okay, if your game that you came out with just made like 7 million, like 7 million copies sold, which equates to whatever amount of money that would be in physical sales alone. We're not even going to count digital right now because it's really hard to price digital, which is why the companies a lot of times don't include them with like their sales, their financials. Because digitals have to pay a licensing fee for the platform that they're on. So like if Mortal Kombat wants to be on like, let's say Switch store, Steam, Epic Game Store, PlayStation Store, PlayStation Store Japan, like, I mean, because they're all different sectors with different money, right? They have to pay a licensing fee out to all of those companies. So if those companies turn around and they make a sale and PlayStation US is like, all right, we're going to put your game on sale for 50% off, they're still paying the same licensing fee. They don't get a deal on that licensing fee. And a lot of the cases, it's up to the sector in which they put a game on sale, right? Like why you see Steam sales, but you don't see Epic Store sales at the same time. Hakan Gemini says, and November would be the best month because of holiday deals, especially Black Friday. That's why a lot of the games usually release in October, and they usually start the fiscal year from November to January. That way they can calculate the sales based on that. But a lot of them don't use the winter quarter because that's the best case scenario. The reason why it's called Black Friday is because when your ledger of finances of profit that you've made throughout the year is in the black, then that means that you've made an actual profit. When it's in the red, that means that your company took a loss, which means you paid for more assets than you actually are getting back into your hands. So if a GameStop buys 20 PlayStation 5s, they have to use that liquid capital, their money, so they're at a loss. If they don't sell them within a certain amount of time, they're automatically taking a loss. If they do sell them within a certain amount of time, then they're making a profit. So retailers call it Black Friday is because that's usually the only time throughout the entire year that they're actually making a profit. So a lot of acquisitions and a lot of financial companies and lenders and banks, they're not actually going to look at Black Friday because that's the best case scenario and it's an outlier. They're going to look at the spring because that's the least time that people spend money. So when you look at the spring actual financials for the spring quarter, they're going to say, okay, well, this is the worst case scenario. So we're going to give you money and budget based on a worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. Michael Garcia says, that's why I like October. That's when I'm out buying both Halloween supplies and video games. Yeah, that's the broke time of the year, man. That's why they also come out with like consoles around that time. It's nuts. But all this stuff goes into accordance with not only Mortal Kombat losing their license because they're getting bought out by somebody. We don't know yet. There's bids out, but we don't know who AT&T is going to sell the rights to WB games to. But this affects other games like Soul Calibur 7 as well, because even though Soul Calibur 7 is not being purchased, it's still the same kind of financial application that they have to go through with their parent company. Bandai Namco is the publisher. They are not the parent company that owns. Those are the financiers and the banks that actually lend them the money. So Bandai Namco does have final say when it comes to development scheduling, but they don't have final say when it comes to projects that are approved or not. That is, I'm sorry, I had a nose itch. Let's take a look real quick right now and see who owns Bandai Namco. Okay, so there is a company that owns Bandai Namco called Bandai Namco Holdings. So it's a public company. It's Holdings as a shareholder. So that means that the purpose of maintaining and developing a business relationship would go to how much money or how many shares that a certain company has in a public company, which is different than a privately owned company. It says that Nintendo currently owns over 3.8 million shares of Bandai Namco. They're worth really about 186 million. Sorry, I'm just looking up a little bit more information. So yeah, so it depends. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of moving pieces that are involved, and it's not just like gaming or development. That's why when I try to inform people or talk to you about this kind of stuff, like I'm coming at it with every angle, not just like the development angle or like the game studios angle, because they have a lot of hoops that they have to jump through, and it's not just about sales. Reckless Navigator asks, do you think that based off of other styled games they could be realizing around the same time, would that heavily affect the sales of either those games, etc., meaning like other AAA titles? Take away the light from your nose. Yeah, it's like kind of burning me, but it's whatever. That's why I actually have this light turned off, because usually it's brighter in here, but during the streams they're like at least an hour, so I don't want to like die from heat stroke. All right, Mike, I'll get to you in a second. Let me answer Reckless Navigator first. So the parent company is like Bandai Namco, who own the studios that own the developers. They apply for, if they say our game is ready to release, when is our release window, right? And they'll look at a couple things. They'll look at when their last release windows are, when the next times next AAA games are coming out, because they don't want to compete with each other, especially within the same company. So that's why you'll see with like Bandai Namco, for example, when Demon Slayer is coming out in October, right? You don't see any other major anime fighting games owned by Bandai Namco coming out at the same time, because they don't want to compete with themselves. But that's not up to Bandai Namco. That's up to like their parent company, because they know how much they've made in the last fiscal year, and that's when they give them their approval schedules. And a lot of these schedules are public to each other. Well, not public to us. It's like public to their shareholders and the financiers. So they know when other AAA games are coming out, because they try not to compete with each other. Because you can have a major game that does really well, and if it's up against like others, people only have a certain amount of money to spend. Stu Excalibur says, in my opinion, I would expect it release 2023 or 2024. If we're talking Mortal Kombat or Soul Calibur, that's different. But if we're talking Soul Calibur 7, I'm going to go more with 2024 because we already know that it's only going to be on the next gen console. So it's only going to be on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series as well as PC. So which is going to come later because that usually gets ported out by a third company. So they need to build it on Unreal Engine 5. And I don't know how many assets they have from Unreal Engine 4 that are from the older games that they want to actually port and can port into the assets for Unreal Engine 5. That's going to take some time. Hakan Gemini says, so another quest, do publishers affect the game schedule if it gets season or patches since they have nothing to do with game development, which is a separate team? Yes, the seasons are up to mainly the developers themselves because usually they'll apply for a budget. They have to prove that they can make an ROI. And then once they actually receive that budget, if they gave them, let's say we need a budget for a game that includes story mode, arcade mode, and we're going to have a planned 1 DLC season, then they're going to give them the budget that includes all that. They can apply for a second DLC season, but it depends on the sales based on the first DLC season, unless that season 2 is already included in their initial pitch for the game. But they'd have to give them reason why they would need the extra development and the development time. Because sometimes they like to pick members of other development teams and put them on other development teams just so they can get projects done faster. There's a lot of crunch that goes on, especially within the same studio. That's why we saw Motohiro Okubo was taking off of Soul Calibur 6, and he was working on the Pac-Man game until Pac-Man was finished. So they literally just will shuffle people around. That's why Harada was working on Soul Calibur 5 and moved over to solely being on Tekken's staff. They just move people around a lot. It's the same mother company, so they don't really have to worry about new deals or licensing agreements or any new contracts. They can just say, this is part of your contract. If we need you somewhere else, you have to go somewhere else. That's why the teams shift around so much. If we're talking Mortal Kombat 12, it depends on when the sale is going to go through, when WB is going to be sold. If WB is going to be sold in 2022 or 2023 or 2024, then we're going to see Mortal Kombat come out a year before then. So I'm going to say that Mortal Kombat 12 is probably going to come out in 2022 or 2023, which is enough development time because they start working on the next game immediately after they start working on the last one. Because like you said, the development team for the DLC is mostly different from the original initial game and the initial project. So if we're looking at a release schedule for Mortal Kombat 12, we're probably looking at 2022 or 3 because it's already been out for, I think, 3 years, maybe more than that. So they would only need an additional year of development time to even finish the base game because they can worry about DLC later. We all know that most of those games are going to release with a limited roster. Even we can see this now, Bandai Namco has come out and said that there is going to be demons in Demon Slayer, but they're going to be free DLC that are added later, which means that they couldn't meet their time limit for what they wanted to do with the game, that being CC2, because they're also working on Dragon Ball Kakarot at the time. And they want to release it within the window that they're supposed to release it in, or otherwise they can lose a contract or be penalized. It's a really bad thing. They can get dropped entirely. So Demon Slayer is going to release with just the amount of characters that it has, and then they're going to worry about adding other characters via DLC. It's the same thing that Street Fighter 5 does did. If they're worried about esports, they want to just get the game out there for tournaments, so they have it by a certain time that they're supposed to be set to release, and they need to release by that time, whether the game's finished or not. And there's only so many times that a parent company will allow you to delay a game, because you have to have a really good reason to delay a game. You can't just say it's not ready yet, because they're going to say, well, according to your contract with us, you said that Halo Infinite was going to be ready by this time. So you need to release Halo Infinite by this time. That's why when Halo Infinite's coming out, even though it got approved for delays, which probably meant hey, look at these bugs. We did a beta test. We're showing you feedback. We need more time with the game. They're going to say, okay, we'll give you more time with the game and a little bit more money, but this is the last straw here. That's why it's releasing without co-op mode and without some of the other modes that are involved until later on. Same thing happened with Cyberpunk 2077. But even a game like them can release a game that they have to release because that game was worked on for years. And they're probably you got to release this game. There's nothing else coming out. There's nothing else going to compete. It doesn't matter if it's unfinished. We can fix it in patches later. And then, of course, public backlash affects them, which affects their stock market, which affects the budget later on. S tier salt says, damn, I was a little late. My apologies, Mark. I got a question for you. If you can give me a rough estimation time. When do you think Soul Calibur Season 3 will drop? I do not think it will drop. I'm sorry to say. I think Season 3 is not coming. They've already been approved for Soul Calibur 7, so they've probably been working on Soul Calibur 7 for a while. Season 2 does end with if you've played the Soul Chronicles, with a to be continued finale. I know there is data and in the games for the characters, because you're supposed to get Aeon, Rock, Yoon Song, and another guest. So I know that there's data in there for them, but they might actually save them for base roster for Soul Calibur 7 as opposed to a Season 3. Because sales are actually really low and player base is really low for Soul Calibur right now. I believe the highest play number that I've seen is like 1,000 concurrent players on PlayStation, and it's a little bit less than 800 concurrent players on Xbox, which means playing right now at this time. And on Steam and PC, it's a little bit less than that. So if you add all that up, they have no reason to develop another Season 3, especially based on the sales of Season 2. Because I've already seen a lot of people say that they weren't happy with Season 2. I personally was ecstatic, especially we got like Huang back. But like, I don't think we're gonna get a Season 3. But I know that you're a new subscriber, I believe, to my channel. So I have a laundry list of like episodes you can go back and check out of normal videos explaining Season 3 and what happens in more detail. So hopefully you can take a look at that when you have some free time. I've made countless videos on Season 3. So I hope that answered your question. Michael Garcia says, how come Temco or Team Ninja does not reboot any of their old games, not just Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, but I feel like all their old games, because they have to apply for approval. I like I said earlier, NetherRealm wants to make Injustice 3 next. That's what they want to do, but they can't do that because of this new acquisition. They can't do that because of WB being sold off by AT&T to the highest bidder. So they have to perform their best that they've done in the past like fiscal quarters. That's the same thing that happens when a new company is applying for a new game. Like if Bloody Roar wants to come out, right? A new Bloody Roar, they have to prove to the parent company that Bloody Roar is going to have a big ROI, but they have nothing to show for it because the last game came out a while ago. Same thing goes for Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive 6 sold horrible compared to Dead or Alive 5 last round. I didn't know Soul Calibur 7 was approved. We're getting it great. Yeah. So what happened is Bandai Namco, when Motohiro Okubo, Masayama, and the rest of the crew got together and they pitched their meeting with Bandai Namco for Soul Calibur 6. It was initially denied, but then they promised that they would sell at least they would sell at least like I think 3 million copies. They said. And then Bandai Namco turned around and said, if you can sell 2 million copies, then we'll approve you for Soul Calibur 7. Well, they just passed 2 million copies physically sold, and that's not including digital copies. So it's definitely approved, and they're definitely working on Soul Calibur 7. You can expect to see that sometime around 2023, 2024. How much do you know about rollback? Because the most I hear that works more in 2D fighting games than 3D fighting games. All right, so if you want me to explain what a rollback is, I have to explain what a netcode is. So a netcode is literally like the data that it takes from your like input lag or your input to get to the servers, then bounce off the servers and go back to the player that you're playing against. Rollback netcode is an AI-based like algorithm that rolls back the frame data, and it kind of like it says, okay, you're in the middle of this combo like 99.9% of the time. This combo goes through and turns this way, right? So they're going to actually roll back the frame data so that the AI is guessing that that's going to connect or do that. And you're going to actually like at least have no lag or no input delay or no frame drops. So it's kind of like an AI guessing what you're going to do. That's what rollback is. The reason it's easier on 2D fighters than 3D fighters is because there's less pixels involved in the frame, in the data. So a two-dimensional fighter, whether it be a 2.5D or a 2D fighter in general, is based on animation cell frames, right? So you can have like 3 keyframes, and then you can have 10 input frames in between them, or like a primary frame. So when they're animating to go through those frames, it's easier to coordinate exactly what the frame's going to do than rendering with a 3D environment, because you have a lot more pixel density and paragonal density when it's actually involved in that movement. Does that make sense? So rollback can be implemented in 3D games, but it's easier in 2D fighting games because it's easier for the AI to know what the character or the movement's actually going to be. And that's what rollback is. There's also like AI predictive, which I don't like as much as rollback. Predictive is like they take an algorithm based on how many combos have connected and turned into other combos, and they guess that that's what you're going to do, and then they end up doing that. I hate that. Peer-to-peer is probably the worst based on connection speeds around the world, but rollback can be implemented. But the games mostly need to be like rebuilt around like rollback because it affects the frame data directly and the input lag. Let's see. If Dead or Alive 7 gets made, do you think Tonobu Itagaki will come back and work on the project? I have no idea. I have to see what's going to happen with Dead or Alive 7 because Dead or Alive 7 didn't do too well. I'm now back with a double-decker sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich. That sounds delicious. Hakan Gemini says, so Bamco denied Soul Calibur 6 because of the sales of Soul Calibur 5. AT&T wonder why that explains the reason for the mobile games after 5. Well, they're included in part of that. So, like, the reason that the free-to-play game came out and the iOS game came out was specifically to recoup losses based on the same assets because it's easy to build systems around there. You mean Dead or Alive 6? Yeah, I mean, Dead or Alive 6 did poorly. I'm sorry. I am talking so fast, answering so many questions, it's hard to get the numbers straight. But what were we talking about? Okay, so they were trying to recoup lost investments, so they outsourced their game license for like a basic license to create the iOS only mobile game, which I believe actually cost money. And then the free to play game, which I did play for a little bit, but it was kind of garbage. Those two games were supposed to get back some of the money that they were invested in getting in Soul Calibur 5 because their budget was cut short because based on the first year sales or the predicted sales based on the sales of Soul Calibur 4 and how much money had to get poured into that. So they cut the story by like 75%, focused on online, and they actually got rid of a lot of other modes that were supposed to be in it. So they tried to recoup that money because, as you know, they canceled the DLC that was planned for that game as well because of the fan backlash. Because at the time, it was like a really hated game. I know a lot of people in post-retrospect actually like aspects of Soul Calibur 5, including myself. Like I like the character creator and the endless battle mode. But at the time, it was known as like an atrocity pretty much. So that didn't alone kill the company. Talk fast at work sometimes too, dude. Yeah. Just I have to get a lot of thought out with trying to stay within like an hour. So it's all about like money that they're predicting. But another good question. Thank you. Reckless Navigator says, dude, I wish Bloody Roar would come back. I'd lose if it did. Childhood game. Yeah, I mean, that was a lot more free of a time where they weren't based so much on past like instances of sales. It was a very experimental time, especially during the PlayStation 1 era. And PlayStation 2. That's why it's got such a big library. Because even now, like if an indie developer wants to develop something for one of those companies, there's a lot of licensing fees involved just to have them on their platform. So it's like really hard for even indies to get on there, which is why games like Hades being a success is such like a good thing because it'll open them up to more. Xbox is a little bit more better with that than PlayStation because Xbox has developer mode baked into all their consoles for $20. So by the way, if you have like an Xbox One or an Xbox Series, you can run developer mode on those and actually have emulators run off of it. So you can play like PS2 and PS1 and like N64 games on your Xbox. And it's not considered modding because Xbox allows you to do it. Yeah, they were allowed to take risks because they were just throwing stuff at the wall to see what fit at the time. Like now, they go very much based on financials. Especially because like video games has been a more profitable entertainment. It's the most profitable entertainment industry like in the world. So games destroy Hollywood sales. Like they freaking destroy Hollywood sales. They require a lot more money, planning, and time to go into them though too. What are the chances that DOA will get a sequel? I assume it is very low. I don't think it's low because DOA is such a long-running standard, but they may fire some of the people from the development team and hire some new people to try and do like, I'm not sure about a reboot, but possibly like a team reboot. Like give them the framework of what they want the story to be. Excuse me. I have to sneeze. Give them the framework of what they want the story to be and then go from there. But I don't think it's low. I think we definitely will get a sequel. I just don't know when that's going to be. I'm going to blow my nose. Sorry, one second. Talking so fast, I think a French fry went up my nose. The only thing that sucks about PS2 and that generation in general is because of the region locking on the consoles. That really hurt them a lot. I still have hope for Tenchu and Dante's Inferno to return. I mean, Dante's Inferno is one of my favorite, especially God of War clones, but I love that game, but I don't know if we're going to get a sequel to that because that requires licensing. It's not. I don't think that's public domain. And Tenchu, we'll see. Tenchu would be cool. Like, I mean, I don't know how they would like ask for that though. How they can ask for Tenchu would probably be if they included like Ayane and the other guy, I forget his name. If they included like the two main characters in a fighting game as like guests, like they did with like the virtual fighter characters in Dead or Alive 5, they can judge how many people like purchase those characters, and then that can be used to argue for a new Tenchu game. But I don't know how else they would do that. I don't know if they would just come out with a new Tenchu game. It would be nice. I love the Tenchu series. They could probably argue the aspects of Ghost of Tsushima that replicate things that were started in Tenchu and show how much people still want to play that. Yeah, but Neo 2 didn't sell that well either. Reckless Navigator says, I thought about this a bit also, but do you think with how Soul Calibur 6 is in its current state, do you think they will try and right their wrongs in Soul Calibur 7? Well, the only limitations that they have based on them is by the budget. So I think that they have like bigger plans to do things, and I trust the team that's currently doing it. But I think they will try to fix certain things, such as like netcode especially, and I don't know if we're going to see Reversal Edge return because it's like universally despised. And if it is, it's going to be heavily nerfed. Hopefully it costs meter instead of gaining meter and is reduced in frames because it's a big waste of time. The game was too good not to, yeah. By the way, if you guys are new in the stream and you haven't liked the stream yet, please like the stream because it helps me out with the algorithm gods. I hope Edgemaster returns with no weapon. I see somebody watched my video on the edgeless Edgemaster. That is my my hope as well. Also, super chats are active, so if anybody wants to help out the stream and help out my channel in general, it would be much appreciated. And Atherin will take note because you will be put into a queue of playing with me in the member stream with like a $5 donation or more, which means when we actually play the games together, which we usually do once a week, you can play directly with us and the members, or you can just join the channel. There's several tiers, including a 99 cents tier. Sorry for the ad. I just got to put that out there. I think we're probably going to end the stream in 10 minutes, unless you guys have any questions or want to go longer. I can't imagine Edgemaster with no weapon, but I guess it'll be unique style. I can. So if you go watch and you go back and you watch my video, I gave a very poignant response to that. He wouldn't be not necessarily. I mean, so here's the thing. Edgemaster's whole purpose is a trainer, right? So he's mastered all of these weapons. So who better to counter weapons than someone who's mastered the weapons themselves? Because if you master a katana, you know how a katana works, and you're probably the best defense against a katana, even more so over another katana. So not only would he be able to fight against and block and counter all of these weapons that he's mastered, but we would have a weaponless fighter in the game that we can use for create a character. And it's something I think they've been trying to implement since Devil Jin. I think they will try and do it again. And Edgemaster is, in my opinion, the best way of doing that. So it wouldn't be a mimic. It'd be like his own style. Are you all PC for the matches with members thing? Sorry to go back. No, so we have ways of playing on all the consoles. I actually do have Soul Calibur with all the DLC on Xbox and on PlayStation. I have the ability to play it on PC. It's just a little bit harder because I have to actually like go in and download everything because I don't usually play on PC, but I can hook up my Xbox controller. So usually what we do with members is you would go to my main mod, Atherin, and he would add you to a playlist. And whenever we do the member streams, we all just go on there and mics and we play. It depends on which system you're going for. You're on Xbox. That's why I was checking. Yeah, I have it on Xbox and PlayStation. You don't have to worry about that. I have the Xbox Series and I also have PS5. And I have Soul Calibur on both of those with all the DLC. So it's we wouldn't really be contained or hindered by anything. And if we're on Xbox, we can actually get other YouTubers in there too. I can see if like KittyMeowser Gaming wants to play and stuff like that. So just to explain the tiers, by the way, for the member tiers, 99 cents doesn't guarantee that you're going to play, but that guarantees you to be in a queue. So if a member doesn't show up from the $4.99 or the $9.99 tier, then you'll be slotted in to take their place. That's how that works. If you join the $4.99 tier, you're automatically guaranteed to play every single time. And the same goes for $4.99 super chats, but it's only for one time. So if you do like a $4.99 super chat, like a $5 super chat or higher, then the next time we play, you're guaranteed to get in there. And I even do one-on-one play sessions sometimes too with members. So like if a member hits me up and wants to do like a one-on-one session, because people that are in the queue, they go into Atherin's chat. But if you're a member of my channel, I directly add you to my PlayStation myself. So like it's easy for you to reach out to me and message me and stuff when you want to play. Roxas says Soul Calibur 6 was bad. Single player content was good as it was new, but noticed that they were working with old creation engine. Yeah, because they had no budget. They had to really do is port over creation parts, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're definitely gonna have to recreate everything in Unreal Engine 5 or port it over and like re-polygon support it. Reckless Navigator says I might start streaming soon if I get too serious with this. Streaming is it takes a different kind of person to do streaming. Like I've tried streaming games and I get distracted with chat and it's hard to enjoy myself and sit back. So I don't really play that often on stream. Like I'm thinking about, I started a Twitch channel. I'm thinking about playing on there like exclusively, but I'm still not sure yet. I might just stream here and make a new channel, but then I'd have to like take a couple years to get like monetized. So I really don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. But when I do members play sessions, we usually don't stream them. Like we've streamed them a couple of times when like, because there's other YouTubers that are part of my channel. So if they want to stream it on their channel, we'll allow them to stream. But usually we just like relax and chill. Do you think Bayonetta 3 will be on multiple consoles or just Switch because they're really holding it back? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know if we'd see a Devil May Cry Bayonetta crossover game ever, but we could possibly see like Bayonetta as like a playable character in the bonus modes of like Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition or something like that. Well, maybe Devil May Cry 6 actually. Khan Gemini says I haven't followed Mortal Kombat 11 that much. The last Mortal Kombat game I played was Mortal Kombat 9. Mortal Kombat 11 is the ending story to Mortal Kombat 9. It's a complete trilogy. Because Mortal Kombat 9 is when the last reboot started. Actually, Armageddon was supposed to be a reboot, but then they rebooted it with Mortal Kombat 9. And now with Mortal Kombat 12, it's going to be another reboot. It's kind of a reboot continuation, though, because this time around, Liu Kang is going to be the Elder God as opposed to Raiden, and old Luke, Kung Lao is going to be the hero as opposed to Liu Kang. I heard YouTube takes a large cut from any royalties earned on YouTube streaming. That's something that would make you move to Twitch. It is. They take 30%, which is another reason why I don't stream that often. Because if I stream and only like 200 people watch it and nobody does a super chat or anything, I already don't make that much money from ads. And then if they take 30% on top of that, it's like no point to even do it. Nintendo has the rights to Bayonetta, so I assume it would be going on the Switch. I would assume so too. I can't wait for Mortal Kombat 12. I mean, yeah, but I wasn't looking forward to like another Mortal Kombat so soon. Like I kind of wanted like something else, but I'd be okay with it. Well, it would be a new timeline that was created after Chronicle was defeated. So we don't even know if all the past characters are going to be there. We're not even sure if it's going to involve like Sonya Blade or any of the military or anything like that at all. Just like Soul Calibur 6 is a new timeline and completely different from the last timeline. It's a similar situation. It's going to be a reboot, but the old timeline still exists. I know I want Injustice 3 also, but it's not like it's not in the cards. Injustice 3 was what was planned next. But WB is being sold by AT&T, so they have to put their best foot forward and make the most money they can so that they can get the biggest budget for their next game. Last chance to like the stream if you haven't already. This is going to be a full video, like up after some processing. So if you want to go back and watch the beginning of it, because this is an hour-long stream, then yeah. Roxas, I don't even know when Injustice 3 is going to come out at this point now. Like Injustice 3 might not come out for like another like 6 years or something like that. Especially if Mortal Kombat 12 is coming out like next year or the year after, you're not going to see Injustice 3 until AT&T is not just a phone company. Like AT&T, their phone subsidiary is just a small part of AT&T. AT&T is a communications company. So they have a lot of different aspects, and they own WB. They own WB's gaming division. They don't own WB. They just own WB's gaming division. Last 2 minutes. If somebody wants to throw up a sticker or do a super chat, that'd be much appreciated. If not, it is cool. I appreciate you being here regardless. But it does help me make future content and videos. If you've noticed, I've had to scale back a little bit, and I've only been doing like 2 or 3 videos a week as opposed to 5. It's because I have to make more money elsewhere because I haven't been making any money on the streams like I used to. I used to make like, when I first started streaming, doing these live streams, I would make like $50-$60 from donations, and which would turn into like $40 that I actually take home. But you don't actually get that today. Like I would get it in like a month because that's how Google pays me. But yeah, I would like to see a reboot of Nina's game from Namco Bandai. The action shooter one that she was a part of. Thank you guys for watching the stream. I really appreciate it. I hope you catch me on the next one. And for those of you who don't know, I cover comic book stuff and video game stuff, especially fighting games. So if you're new to the channel, I would appreciate if you would join the channel or subscribe to the channel. That we can get some more information. But before you do that, go check out some of my older videos. Just make sure if I'm a right fit for you or not. Because not everybody likes the YouTubers they subscribe to. And I'd rather you actually like my stuff before you subscribe than leave later on. There is a Discord. So go into the description box and join the Discord if you want. That's not locked to members. Anybody can join the Discord, and we have really good conversations over there. And I will see you guys in the next video. With that being said, I love it. Thank you, and thick you.